Hello, and welcome to Tea with Kai Marie. And hopefully, y'all can hear me. I'm not hearing myself on the on my mic, so hopefully this is coming through. And actually, I'm going to come back in and see if that works out a little bit better. Okay, I'll be right back. All right. Hi. I'm back. Kai Marie here. I'm still not really hearing myself that well. Okay, there we go. All right. Yes. Here we are. So, hello, my name is Kai Marie, and welcome to Tea with Kai Marie. So, today we are going to be having a conversation about a topic that I actually covered in the past. And this topic was about spirituality and kind of when you go through this spiritual awakening, what you may feel. And how your life may change. So, before we jump into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Tea with Kai Marie. So, this is a series that I was doing on Instagram. And I would go live on Instagram and have Tea with Kai Marie. And it's just a conversation about different areas of our lives that we're looking to have some self improvement. And many times when the areas that we discuss are areas that I am working on. And because that way I can kind of relate and tell you a little bit about my struggles that I am going through or have gone through. And maybe through my struggles and what I've been able to find out through this journey of life, maybe it can help you on your own path. So the Tea with Kai Marie is just meant to be a one-on-one conversation. If you follow me or if you watch my Healing Element podcast, many times on that podcast, it is I have guests that come on and share their expertise. But Tea with Kai Marie is meant to just be a real intimate conversation and having a sense of community in which we can just have a dialogue about what it means to have this experience of living here on earth and what are ways that we can begin to make changes that we can enhance our life, enhance our quality of life, and also our relationships. The other thing that we do with Tea with Kai Marie, parting my back sort of, is we drink, of course, tea. Can you see this tea? There we go. So this is the yogi tea. Um, I'm not sponsoring yogi or anything like that. The yogi tea, this one of my favorite teas. So this is what I'll be sipping on tonight while we have our conversation. And so if there is a tea that you are sipping on, let me know. Drop in the comments. I love to know what you'll be drinking. So right here I have my tea with some honey, and it's perfect for this like rainy, cool night here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So for those that are joining live, please feel free to drop in the comments where you are watching from, what tea you're drinking, and also do that if you are watching this in the replay. All right. So again, tonight we're talking about spirituality and when you're going on this spiritual journey. And so many times, and let me know if you guys have seen this, where people are like, oh, I'm going on this spiritual journey. and there's talking about all these great things that happening and this awakening and the third eye is opening and things are flowing to them. And it's like, wow, I want to experience that. But many times, and certainly those things can happen, but many times we leave out the other part of what it means to go on this spiritual path, or a path in which, you are beginning to challenge yourself in areas that you didn't before. What do I mean by that? So we're going to jump in. So this is not meant to kind of kill the vibe of what it means to go on a spiritual journey, but just for it to be realistic, and what you can anticipate, and what it actually feels like. All right. And for everybody, it's different, but I can guarantee you at some part on your journey, you're going to go through this. So when you first start off on this journey, and this is speaking from my experience and a few others that I have spoken to, there's comes a point, usually it's when you're in a rough period of your life and you're kind of questioning, like, there has to be more than just this, like this can't be it, can it? And when you start to ask those questions, it causes you to do some reflection. And I think, right now we do live in a space and time where there's not a lot of reflection that takes place. Now, because of everything that has gone on these past 2 years, there has probably been a little bit more reflection than before because there isn't all of the distractions that we once had. But it is, deep reflection. That's not something that we typically do because we're kind of distracted by other things. But when you're going on a spiritual journey, you may find yourself reflecting a little bit more, questioning a little bit more, and drop in the comments if you're like, oh, yes, starting to questioning things. And maybe you're questioning things that typically you didn't before. Like maybe typically you're like, oh, I know my belief system. I know how things operate in society. And maybe, for example, I worked in politics for years before coming into this wellness space. And I thought that I knew exactly how politics worked, even though I was in the midst of it. And it wasn't until I took a step back and started going through my own spiritual journey that I began to realize, like, wait a second, do you really know how the system works? So that whole part of questioning. So when you start to question something, what happens naturally next? When you're beginning to wonder, okay, maybe I don't know what I thought I knew. And that can be scary, right? That can definitely be scary. And again, this comes at a point sometimes when you are struggling with something that you may be going through and you just start to question, like, listen, this can't be what life's about. So I'm going to start questioning things. And then you just kind of allow yourself to do that. And the one beautiful thing I will say about the beginning of this journey, if you will, is that questioning part, it almost brings you to a childlike state. And when I say that, it means that anything is possible because you're kind of questioning, you're not kind of limiting whatever it is that kind of comes to your mind. And when I say that, meaning if it's a thought about, well, maybe a certain belief system I had about how, I don't know, again, it could be about politics, maybe a certain belief system I had about how this world actually worked. Maybe now I'm thinking, well, does it work that way? Like maybe I need to step outside of what I thought this kind of machine of how everything was running. Maybe I need to step outside of that because maybe it's not what I thought. So it's really questioning the world around you. It could be questioning your religious beliefs. It could be questioning, how did we get here? It's a multitude. And that's why I say it's like that childlike, where it's just that inquisitive nature comes back and you just begin to wonder about you and the world around you. It could be, what is my purpose? If you are a teacher, it could be, am I supposed to be a teacher? Like, was the purpose for me to come down here and teach my entire life? Was I supposed to be, or am I supposed to be a vice president of some Fortune 500 company? Is that it for me? And I'm not saying it as in a bad thing, but is there more to this life than what I thought? That's kind of what I'm getting at. So that happens when you're kind of on this path of questioning and beginning to think outside of the box that basically we've been conditioned to think inside of. And when I say that, I always go back to the four agreements in which Don Miguel Ruiz talks about the domestication of human beings and how it starts when we are children. And so when we begin to go on that awakening, it's beginning to kind of peel the layers off of all that domestication, all that stuff that people have kind of pushed in us to believe. And we begin to explore and begin to think, okay, what is it that I believe? Right. So when you're beginning to seek that knowledge, I skip to the next part, when you begin to start questioning things, then you start to seek knowledge. And when you do that, you might go outside of what you would typically read, sources you would typically listen to. Why do you do that? Because you're beginning to expand, you're beginning to look past the boxes many times, not only society, but we have placed on ourselves. And you may say, you know what? I've always read from this certain type of literature, but maybe I should read something different. Maybe there's something else maybe there's another point of view that I should consider that I haven't considered before. And so what happens is you're not really looking for what is right, what is wrong per se, but you're in search of truth. And when you're in search of truth, then you begin to question everything, right? Because then you're just like, okay, well, I thought I had this factually right, but maybe I don't. So let me go do some more research because I'm in search of the truth of a thing. What is that? It could be anything. Again, I talked about religion. For me personally, and I will get a little bit more into this, I began to question my religious beliefs. I began to question, this is what I was taught growing up. Is this right? Is this true? Is this the truth? This is the truth as it was taught to me, but is it true? So then I began to look at different type of religions and starting to see some similarities between the Christian belief that I was brought up in and other belief systems. And so that caused me to ask more questions and caused me to look for the truth, if you will, of is this the right faith I should follow? And it's not saying if that faith system is wrong, it's just saying, is it true to me? Right? Because again, when we look at that domestication, since childhood, we are being taught and being poured into us is what we need to believe, how we need to show up in society. And so when you begin to go through this spiritual awakening, a lot of questions, and like I said, it begins to unpeel the layers that have been covering us because of the domestication. So drop in the comments if that makes sense. I'm going to take a little bit of my tea. Hopefully it's cooled down a little bit. And it can be very scary. When you're going through this process, it can be extremely scary because what happens when you begin to question everything and you're not sure of a thing as you once were when this journey started, what am I sure of? It can rock the very foundation of your belief system. An example, what if you were told since you were younger, since you were a child, that you are going to grow up and you need to be a doctor? There are doctors in this family, so you need to be a doctor. And that's what you heard. And maybe you went to medical school and you did everything because it was poured into you that you need to be a doctor. So that's what you did. But then what if you begin to question and say, but am I supposed to be a doctor? Like, is this something that I wanted, or is this something that my parents and family told me that I needed to be? So when you start to question it, like, well, what is it that I like? What you go on this whole, what I like to call this self-discovery of what is it that you like? Again, going back to that childlike state of what you enjoy doing. What do you like? Then you begin to question, okay, so if I'm not supposed to be a doctor, then what I'm supposed to be? Right then there's the rocking is taking place, right? Because now it's like, oh my God, if this isn't what I'm supposed to be, what am I supposed to be? And as humans, we like to have stability. We like to have something for sure. We like to know, okay, no, I'm going to go to medical school and do this, and this is what I'm supposed to do. But once that foundation is rocked of who you were told that you need to be, how you need to show up in society, once that's been rocked, oh my goodness. So who am I? What am I supposed to do here? And that can be a very scary time. But during this time, take a breath, slow release, right? Take a breath, slow release, and realize that you have come to this earth, number one, to have an experience. So let's just take all the pressure off of the doing. I have to do this. I have to be this. I have to show up like this. You are supposed to have an experience. Now, what is the experience that you want to have? Let's just start there. Let's just take a breath, slow, breathe it out, take a moment. What's the experience that you want to have? And many times it can be that you find yourself going back to the things that you used to enjoy, that because of that domestication process, some adult or some parent figure in your life, or if not your parent, maybe moved you away from them. I'm not talking about anything that is not that would be a risk for your own safety, but something that you enjoy doing that wasn't destructive, and that it was maybe the conversation was something that maybe you love taking photography, you love taking photos, and so you're like, yeah, I think I really like this photography thing, and maybe an adult, an authority figure said, oh, that doesn't pay any bills. You need a job that you need to go into a field where you have health insurance, retirement, and you can pay the bills. And photography does not fit into that. So that okay, so I can't be that photographer now because now I have to follow a path that in which I have those type of things. And not saying health insurance isn't important and retirement isn't important, and job security, it is very important. However, you were also came to this earth to have an experience. And so when you begin to start to question things and you begin to seek the truth of things, you may find that you're kind of going back to those things that excite you as a child, and that people may be shunned and say, oh, you shouldn't do that. That's something that's not going to make you money. Why are you wasting your time on that? You may find yourself kind of drifting back to that as you begin to discover yourself, because it's all about peeling back those layers. So when you begin to do that process of, and again, this doesn't have to be religious. This could be you figuring out you. So what do I believe? What do I believe my purpose is? What do I believe my contribution to this world is? Is it what I've been told I came here to do, which was from my maybe parents, maybe from mom and dad said, listen, this is what you need. This is direction that everybody has had in their life, and this is direction that you need to take. Maybe it's, you need to go to school. And now that you're starting to question things like, I don't know if school's for me, you have to figure out, so what is it that I believe to be true? And I just say, allow yourself that time to explore. Because I want to keep going back to this, is that you came here to have an experience. And wouldn't you want that experience to be beautiful? Do you want the experience to be something that basically somebody else is living vicariously through you because they've told you what you need to do with your life, and maybe they didn't do it with their life, so they're telling you this is what you need to do, and so you're following that path? Is that the experience that you want to have? So on this spiritual journey, there will be a lot of questions. But as you begin to walk through this beautiful path, you will begin to get those answers. And it just takes a moment for you to just take a moment to take a breath and realize that you were not placed on this earth to fulfill the expectation of others. You were placed here to have an experience and to become the highest version of yourself, to shine your light. And that's powerful in itself, right? And that takes a lot of work in itself to become, when people say become your highest version. And we hear that a lot. What does that mean? That takes a lot of self-work. That takes a lot of self-discipline. That means staring yourself in the face and saying, listen, it's time to put on my big girl pants, big boy pants, and it's time for me to do the work so I can begin to work through maybe traumas that I experienced in childhood, self-limiting beliefs, working through all of that. And once you begin to do that, listen, you honestly don't have time to worry about how other people believe that you should live your life. But what if you had this, going back to this belief system, what if you had this core belief of, I came here to have an experience and I want it to be a beautiful experience? What if that was it? What if it wasn't to be a teacher, to be a professor, to be mom, to be dad? None of that. What if it was just to have a beautiful experience? What would you be doing? And I'm not saying this as the means of like, you don't need to make an income. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying begin to think outside the box that we have placed ourselves in because of that whole domestication process. So drop a comment below if this is making sense, if this is resonating with you, about why we're placed here and that importance of exploration. And knowing that at moments it may feel scary, but that's okay because you are having that experience. That's part of the experience. Maybe a little fear, maybe a little, I'm not certain of things, but that's all part of this beautiful experience of life. There will be ups, there will be downs. That is part of it. That's part of the journey. So world gets rocked, right? Your world gets rocked because it's like, okay, so I'm not supposed to do this thing that I thought I was supposed to do. I don't believe in this thing that I always believed in. Oh my God, what do I believe? It kind of goes right back to that seeking, searching thing. And what I have come to find is that before going on this spiritual journey, it's that belief that everything you need is from outside of you. Does that make sense? Everything that you need is somewhere external, and you have to bring it to the internal. And then you become powerful. But from what I have experienced is that truly everything that you need is within you. And I say that because think of a person that wants to start a business. And everyone around them says, like, let's say they want to start a business and they want to be a hairstylist. And everyone around them is saying, oh my gosh, you should totally do this. Like you're great at doing hair. I mean, you should do this. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't think I can do this. And they just don't believe that they can be this great hairstylist and have this great business. And what if everyone around them is like, you can totally do this. Like, we'll even help you with getting the loan to open up your own spot. What do you say? And the person's like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna just keep doing my little cubicle job that has nothing to do with hair. I don't know if I can do that. Right. So they're getting all the external, like, we believe in you, right? People from their external, the external world is pouring into them, we believe in you, right? We believe this is possible. But the person doesn't believe that to be true. So if the person doesn't believe that to be true, then that's going to impact how they're going to show up in the world, and that's going to impact their experience. So that's why I say that what we need, what's most important, is what's going on internally for us to work on, build that belief system. And through that spiritual belief system, then you begin, when you go on that spiritual journey, then you begin to have this realization that, oh, wow, there is, through having that spiritual belief system, then you're like, okay, well, I have the power within me, and what I need is not external. Hold on one moment, guys. So when you go through, have that spiritual, when you're going through that spiritual awakening, that spiritual system, then, you know, this is when you begin to really dig deep into who you are and why you're placed here on this earth. Yes, to have an experience, and what is that experience that is meant for you to have. So hopefully this is resonating with you. And there's two other things that I wanted to mention as well. So once you begin to go on this path, you will realize that you are always learning. And this is a quote from a dear mentor of mine, Mr. Neely Fuller. And when anyone asks him, what is, how are you doing? He always says, I'm still learning. He always says that. And he says that because it's true, right? We have come on this earth to have an experience, and every time we learn something new, that may change our outlook on a thing. And so when you are able to be in this space of always learning, that means that you're always in a space of receiving information. And you're not really blocking anything out. You're in the space of receiving. And that can definitely help you on your journey, and it helps your experience as well. So if you are on this path and you're like, oh my gosh, Kaii, yes, what you're saying is resonating with me, let me know in the comments. Like I said, it can be scary. It can feel like, oh my God, what is happening? My whole foundation is rocking underneath me. But like I said, just take a moment to breathe and remember that you came here to have an experience. And part of this process is making sure that you have the experience that you want. When we just listen to other people, and as I said earlier, we just listen to whatever everybody else has poured into us, and we lose our voice. And many times we lose our voices when we are children. When we were children, many times we lost our voice. We lost that little spark that we had, many times because an adult thought that they were doing the best for us. But many times that's when we lost that voice, that inquisitive nature, and we became domesticated. So this is how you need to show up in the world. But as I said, when you begin to go on that spiritual path, that begins to change, and you're saying, you're looking less of what other people or how other people want you to show up, but you're looking at how do I need to show up, number one, for myself, right? Because we weren't just placed on this earth to serve others. We're placed on this earth to have an experience in which we can begin to learn and improve. And what is this is Baseman Awakens, and he says broken people create broke. That's true. And so that when you are on this, I will say this, I'm glad you mentioned that, Baseman Awakens, because when you are on this spiritual journey, you begin to realize first about yourself. You begin to realize, oh, I'm going to say this, I'm a little screwed up. I'm a little screwed up in how I talk to people. I'm a little screwed up maybe in my relationships. But once you begin to see that for yourself, once you begin to see areas in your life that you need to address, and you start to address them, you can pick up. It's so interesting. And guys, drop in the comments below. As you start to work on yourself, let me know if this is resonating with you. As you start to work on yourself, other people become a mirror to you. And you can see yourself in them, areas that you're like, oh, I remember I used to do that. Let me know if you guys if that has happened to you. Like, ooh, I remember I used to do that. Now, when that happens, I'm not saying you just let people run over you, but it's like, I remember what that was like when I was there. And there is a piece of compassion that exists because you know what that's like when you're in that space. For example, I was in a place in which I was a definite people pleaser. And because of that, I allowed I did not have healthy boundaries. And I was, so on top of that, didn't have healthy boundaries, extremely insecure. As I began to work through my people pleasing and insecurities, I would see that raise up in other people when they would react a certain way, either to me or something I would say. And I immediately knew what was triggering that. And that comes as you begin to know more about yourself. You see yourself in other people. Does that make sense? Drop in the comments if that makes sense, please. Just so I know that it's making sense in my head. I just want to make sure it's coming out and making sense through the video. So it's like, wow, I know what it was like. I remember that behavior. I used to show up that way. And so there is a sense of compassion, right? And you can almost then kind of meet that person where they are to try to give them a word of encouragement, to get them to think outside the box. But because you've been there, you know that you can't change them. And how do you know that? Because you know when you were there, no one could change you. That you had to see for yourself that you had to make a change. And that's part of that healthy boundary that comes up. Because when you see that person who is maybe doing something destructive, you know you can't save them, because you know when you were doing something destructive, nobody could save you. You had to save yourself. But you know what? You know how to plant that seed. Like, listen, I can't hang around you, but I'm going to just plant this little seed because I was once there. And you may be able to offer a word. You may be able to perform an action that can reach them because you were once there. And when I will tell you, that is the beauty. Yes, that is the beauty about going on this journey, is that you not only know how to show up, you know how to show up for you, and you know how to set up those healthy boundaries. And that's probably something that was a stumbling block before beginning this awakening journey. Basically says, yes, it makes it easier to create boundaries and to decide who belongs in my life. It does. It does. And I'm glad that you said that, because that's going to lead us right into core principles. So, okay, we're having this spiritual awakening, this journey. And like I said in the opening, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. You're dealing with a lot of stuff that's been packed down, stomped down in you, and now everything's starting to bubble up. And you're like, wait, hold on a second. I thought it's supposed to be like dancing through the fields and little birds chirping and everything. No, it's work. Spiritual journey is work. And, you know, I don't want you to walk away from this video feeling like, oh God, what did I get myself into? I just want you to have a real look at what a spiritual journey looks like. Because I think it has really been watered down and diluted to just like holding hands and there's nothing but love and everybody is like, it takes work. And sometimes you can often find yourself being alone because of the work that it entails. Who wants to work on themselves all the time? Who wants to make constant adjustments to themselves all the time, especially when we live in a society that tells us you are perfect the way you are, just how you are. You don't have to change. And that's not true. We should always be evolving. We should always be changing. We should always be growing. We should always look to see how can we get better. And it's not in a critical way. It's just in the way of what have I been saying? I want to have the best experience on this planet. And to have the best experience, I'm going to have to make some changes. Does that make sense? So what I'd like to say is that when you're living when you're going on this spiritual journey, it is really about beginning to develop your core principles. What are the principles that you live by? And that's something to think about. And maybe even after watching this video, you could begin to jot it down and say, what are my core principles? What are kind of like the pillars of my belief system? what would that look like? And you can make it your own. And the beauty of your spiritual journey, and actually, if you guys check out, there's a link right in this, right beneath this video in the description box. You can see my interview with Gianna, in which we're talking about the spiritual awakening. So I definitely recommend you check out that video. But what we talked about in that interview is that spiritual journey or a spiritual awakening doesn't have to look a certain way. So when you're putting your core principles together, begin to think about what are your core principles? What does that look like? What are these principles that this is what I stand on? And that could be anything that comes to you. Your core principles. And when I say principles, because principles to me, it's deeper than a belief. And I may get flack for this, but I'll say this. This is where I am right now with belief. And please let me know in the comments if you agree. When I say I believe something, I'm going by, my belief is developed because of the evidence that was presented in front of me. So due to the evidence that was presented in front of me, I have now developed this belief. However, because I'm on this journey of learning, as I said before, that I'm still learning, my beliefs could change because I could have gathered more information. So now it's like, well, I don't know if I necessarily believe that anymore, because now there's new evidence that has now been presented to me. This may change my belief. Does that make sense? So that's why I say core principles. These are the guiding principles in which I live my life. And that those principles are something that I don't stray away from. For example, you could have a business that says our core principles are integrity, compassion, and care. That's what they go by. That's the pillars of their business. They're not going to sway one way to the left. If it's not, if this, whatever is going on, if it's not integrity, if it's not compassion, if it's not care, if it does not align with this, then nope, not good for the business. Right? So to me, the core principle, when you're looking at your core principles, this is how you structure your life. So how do you want to structure your life? And that aligns with the experience that you want to have on Earth. So drop below, let me know if this is resonating with you. And does it make sense? Because sometimes I found that when you're going through the spiritual journey, sometimes it can make more sense to you than someone that's maybe starting out in the journey. So I want to make sure that what I'm saying is very clear, and that it does make sense. Because I want to make sure that this is helpful as possible. And I will say that, when you are on this path and you begin to have your core principles and you begin to question everything, and it doesn't mean like, when you go out with people and they say, I don't know, the Democrats and Republicans, you're like, no, wait a second. No, it's not just the Democrats. It's it's the larger system that's at play. It doesn't mean that you're always kind of like in that space. But it also means that you use discernment as to when you want to kind of approach different topics, right? It doesn't mean that you always have to go there. Sometimes, you know what, guys, honestly, I found on this spiritual journey, a lot of times I may be silent. Sometimes it's just like, I'm going to just fall back and listen. It's not always, I got to say something. I got to say a word. I got to let people hear me. Sometimes it's good to just take a pause and listen and be okay with that. Thank you, EJ. Yes, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. I think I said EJ, EH. Take some more tea. So So, if this is your first time joining Tea with Kai Marie, welcome. And this is actually something that I used to hold on Instagram Live. But because Instagram has changed its format a little bit, I brought it over here to the Kai Marie channel. So I will be hosting Tea with Kai Marie. I'm going to get a regular schedule for these. So I will let you know when that will be. So here I'm sipping my tea. Drop in the comments if anybody's drinking some tea. Let me know what you're sipping on. This is green tea. Let me know if you guys like this is the yogi, the green yogi tea. So that's what we're sipping on today. So let me know what you're sipping on in the chat. So that's what we do with the Tea with Kai Marie. We get our favorite tea and we sip on that while we have a conversation about areas of our lives that we're just looking to improve. So that way we can have a beautiful experience here on Earth. So I hope you guys enjoyed this talk. And I'm looking forward to continuing these type of conversations. And if there's a topic that you would like covered during the Tea with Kai Marie, please let me know. You can drop it right in the comments below. But again, when we have these real intimate conversations, this is all about how do we begin to empower ourselves so that way we can begin to heal from traumas of our past. We can begin to live a life of purpose, on purpose. How do we begin to show up in the world with that confidence? Because that's all important, because that all goes back to having a beautiful experience on this earth. And I just want to, as I start to wind down for tonight, I just want to say again, you were not placed on this earth to live out the dreams of someone else. Maybe mom and dad told you, listen, you need to be this, you need to enter this field. Or maybe they told you that you were not going to be successful. And maybe those words, that was part of that domestication, maybe those words have stayed with you into adulthood. And I want to tell you right now, that was their stuff, their own stuff that they projected on you. You have the right to have a beautiful human experience. And as you begin to go on your spiritual awakening, you will see that you are worth having that beautiful experience. You were placed here on this earth for a reason. And it was not just to be there to support others, right? Which is important, but it's to make sure that you're getting what you need out of life. So that way you can show up for yourself and be the person that you need to be to have a beautiful experience. Because who wants to go through this whole experience of life, feeling depressed, feeling down, feeling like I could do more, I wish I could do more, but not having the belief in self. So important. And I could go on, and I don't want to go on a tangent because I definitely could. But I want you to know that your life is worth it. You are worth it. Yes, a spiritual journey can be scary at times, but it's also empowering and liberating all at the same time. Yep, all at the same time. It's scary, empowering, and liberating. And it's also like, what is happening? All at the same time. But I promise you, once you begin to allow yourself to remove those the parameters in which you believe that you have to live your life, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to explore. I'm going to question. I'm not going to live in a box. If I have questions, I'm going to ask. If there's something I want to explore, I'm going to explore. I found myself exploring when I started my spiritual journey. I always heard about astrology. I didn't go to astrology because I thought astrology was evil and bad, right? I started to read about astrology and I was like, this is so fascinating. There's definitely a connection to what goes on above, what goes on earth, right? So allow yourself to explore. And I say this because many times you may find yourself going back to those things that you enjoyed as a child. that maybe someone said, you can't do that, don't do that. And again, I'm not talking about things that are destructive, but if you like to draw and someone was just like, listen, you can't draw. You don't even know how to draw. That's not for you. You on your journey, you may find yourself picking up a drawing pencil. You may find yourself picking up a paintbrush. Allow yourself to go on that beautiful journey. Like I said before, that self-discovery journey to unlock who you are so that way you can have a beautiful experience. You're worth it. You are worth it. So, with that being said, thank you guys so much for joining me, Tea with Kaii Marie. I hope you found it helpful. Again, spiritual journey is not always rainbows and butterflies, but it is empowering. And it's really it's that path that really helps you begin to realize the power that's within you. And everything that you need is within you. Um, and that in itself is pretty darn powerful. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Be sure to join next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the Healing Element podcast. That's a podcast that I host. And that is live every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm actually going to be doing a throwback. This Tuesday, I did an interview with Deborah Singletary. And this interview was back in December of 2020. And we were talking about winter solstice and the meaning of winter solstice and how we need to slow down during the winter months and why that's important. And we talked about different practices that you can begin to implement in your own life during winter solstice to help you slow down and really begin to do some reflection, which is all part of that beautiful season. So I hope that you do check that out. It's right here on the Kaii Marie YouTube channel. And it'll be going live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to check that out. And I will probably that following Tuesday have a discussion. So that way, if you do watch it, you can join me that following Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll talk about that episode because it was very interesting, and I would love to get your thoughts on that. Let's see. EH says, topic, reclaiming our future, Black nation, visions of Black women as essential part of Black, regardless of the removal of Black. Yes, that, you know what, that is a topic. And that is, you know what, I could do that right here on the Tea with Kaii Marie or also on the podcast as well. So I'm going to write that down and I am going to see where that would fit best because that could be a topic that I cover on the podcast or that I would cover right here on the Tea with Kaii Marie. So I will make sure you, to get the alerts to know when I go live in the topics, please do follow me on my Instagram, Kaii Marie Robertson. That's at Kaii Marie Robertson. Or you can go to my website, kaiimarie.com. I believe it's all in the description, and you can sign up to get my my little newsletter that I send out. Usually I send out emails, maybe 2 or 3 emails a week, depending on what's going on. But that way you'll know when I go live, and that way I can you'll get that information. And then we have being conscious of how the future of the strong Black family is being formed now, not by Black research or planned Black socioeconomic communities. Yes. These are very important topics to discuss, especially the climate that we're in, the economic climate that we're in right now. And it is some interesting things that are definitely happening in our society economically. So you need strong family in order to navigate through this new world that we're in. With that being said, I definitely think you guys should check out the episode that I did with my husband, Dwayne Robertson. It's the cryptocurrency right here again on the YouTube channel. Check out the video on cryptocurrency we did, which we talked about how currency is beginning to change in the US, but also the implications globally. And all of that goes back to what's happening economically in our homes, in our communities, in society, in this country, and in around the world. So I really recommend you guys check out that video. It's a lot of good information in there. And I think that the topics that we discussed in the episode are very important for us to begin to really understand what is happening in our society. And I will tell you this, if I did not go on this spiritual journey, how I'm beginning to, my outlook on the world and how I need to show up in the world as a Black woman, as a wife, I would not have that type of understanding if it was not for the spiritual journey that I am going on, because it's continuous. So when I say this, it's not just looking at from a religious perspective. Once you begin to go on the spiritual journey, it hits every area of your life. And that's why I said, going back to your core principles, what are your principles that you're standing on? Not your belief system, because as I said, your belief may change depending on information that's presented in front of you, but what are your core principles that you stand by? Very important. So thank you all so much for engaging and talking. I really appreciate it very much. And when I go live again for another Tea with Kaii Marie, I definitely would love for you all to join me, but also be sure to join me next Tuesday right here in the Healing Element podcast. We're going live and we're going to be talking about winter solstice. Winter is here. Winter is here. We're going to be talking about that. So you guys have a great night. And if you found that this video is helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If it resonates with you, please subscribe to this channel. And I will see you here on Tuesday. All right, guys, have a great night.